and welcome to Watch It Paint It. Today I'm going to be painting a game called Tiny Epic Quest. This is by Gameling Games. These guys really kindly sent me a copy of this game to feature in a tutorial on my channel. So they didn't mention to me, but they actually remade their Tiny Epic Defenders, and this is on Kickstarter at the moment. I don't know about you guys, but I like to keep up with Kickstarter, and I'm always just having a little browse, and I stumbled across it. It's only got about 3 days left on Kickstarter, but if you are interested in the items that I paint here, they are adding the item meeples to that revision they've got on Kickstarter at the moment, so it's worth having a little look at. Anyway, let's have a look at it and let's get on to painting. So here's one of the item meeples, and he's holding one of the swords you get with the game and a shield. I just thought I'd show you. So these are the first meeples I own at all. Somehow I don't have a single game with meeples, so I thought it was pretty cool. These are the first ones I'm ever using, and they can hold weapons. So I'm just demonstrating all the weapons you get in the game. There's 24 in total, and in this tutorial I'm going to be painting all the legendary items. That's the swords, shields, and staffs. Pretty sure it's staves. You can correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong. So let's clear those out of the way and get on with a little bit of painting. So I'm going to start off with Vallejo's Chainmail Silver. I'm using the game colour, so I'm going to go and use this as both the primer and the base. I wasn't sure really how to even go about priming these with a spray can. I think you'd have to do one side at a time and find some sort of way of holding all 12 of the items in a row. So I thought this was a lot easier to paint both sides very quickly, just using my regiment brush here. These are quite smooth plastic, so I had no real fear of damaging my brush. Show you how I did the shield. It's quite a watery base coat, and off camera I'm going to add at least one more coat, possibly two, depending. The shields are very smooth, so it was quite hard to get the paint to sit on it in a sort of uniform way. The sword's less bad, and the staff was particularly easy. So on the staff I'm going to paint the ball at the top in silver. In the shield I painted the sword, I painted the blade in silver, and the shield the whole thing. So next I'm going to take Charred Brown by Vallejo. In the same principle, I'm going to be using this as both the base coat and the primer all in one. So I'm going to take the staffs, I'm going to paint the rest other than that ball in this brown to give a wood effect. So the ball is going to be a gem at the end, so that's why I'm painting it silver to begin with. Just quickly show you me doing all 4 of those, taking very little time. This paint's going on much easier than the silver. And with the swords, I'm just going to paint the handle in this brown, including the sort of pommel at the bottom. A little shout out to Jordan there for informing me it's called a pommel at the bottom of a sword or an axe. So, still using the regiment brush, although it's a very small model, it's very, very easy to apply this paint. And then we'll just whiz through the other 3 swords. They're exactly the same process, just quickly applying it to the handle and the pommel on all of those blades. And those are those done. With the shield then, we're going to move on to the shading, and we're going to be using the Survivor shader by the Army Painter. That's the black shader. I think, especially for the shield, you could actually just use a black paint if you're careful enough to paint it within that recess. But I like to use the shader because it will run into that crack very, very easily. You see, I'm not struggling with this at all. I'm just soaking up a little bit of the shader and just letting it run into there by pressing the brush to it. With the last one, I'll just show you that I'm shading the back of all of these shields as well. Off camera, I'm gonna do the same to all of them. Now with the sword, it's going to take me two goes because I have to turn the blade around. But I'm just going to apply the shader to the handle, the hilt, and the blade. So the whole model, the whole item here is going to get shaded in black, and then going to struggle to paint the rest of it while holding it. So I'm going to put it down, and off camera, as I said, I will continue the shader down the blade. So just quickly show you them all being done, just in case you couldn't imagine how that was done. And then with the staves, I'm going to be doing exactly the same. I'm going to shade the whole thing except for that silver part at the top, which I'm going to use as a gem. So we don't want any shader on that. So then after you've done that, just let all that shader dry and soak in. Next, I'm going to be using some paints I've never used before, not on tutorial or just in any part of my life. So that's the Citadel Technical Paints for painting gemstones. So I've used some of the Patreon support that I've got to purchase these paints, and hopefully I can show you something maybe you've never seen before. I've seen it, but I've never used it, so let's try it out. So I'm going to start with the red gemstone paint, that's the Spirit Stone, and I'm going to be using my detail brush here. So I take a small dollop that I think is enough to cover the shield, and I apply that at the bottom of the shield, and I'm supposed to drag that colour up the shield to give a gemstone effect. Now I don't think it's going to completely work on the shield because that isn't really a gemstone, but I just wanted to use the same paint that I am going to be using on the sword and the staff. So that's one shield down. I'm going to show you the same on the blue, and the blue one is the soul stone. So I'm going to take in my detail brush again. I'm applying the paint onto the bottom of the shield, and then I'm going to drag that paint up, trying to move it from it starts thick at the bottom, and then I'm moving it to be thick at the top, dragging it up. So the blue I found a little bit more difficult to do, so I'm just touching up what I think I did wrong. Again, as I said, I don't think the shields will take that effect perfectly well, but we'll see by the end. And then onto the third of the technical paints. This is the Waystone Green gemstone paint, and I'm just going to use the same technique. Now it's advised that you paint the undercoat with a bright silver. That's why I chose to base coat and prime a lot of this in silver. All the places I was going to paint the gem, I thought it was best to stick to the instructions, so that's what I did there. Again, just touching up the green because it didn't go on as smoothly as I want. Now they don't have a yellow. I've considered mixing it. Maybe it would have worked. Has anyone tried that before? I just thought of it afterwards. So here I'm just using gold yellow by Vallejo, and this is going to be a flat colour unfortunately, but I'm going to try and use a varnish afterwards to sort of bring out a sort of gem look and feel at the end. But it also gives you a look at how the matte would look. If you don't have the gemstone paints and you don't want the gemstone paints, you could just paint them red, blue, green, yellow, and that will match the little meeples within the game. So I think that'll look quite nice in the game. So I'm just doing the same with the tiny gemstone that's on the sword. So I'm starting off with just a matte yellow. I'm just very carefully painting that with my detail brush, and then I'm just going to show you the top of the staff as well. So there's a big ball on the end, and I'm just deciding to paint this in the same colour. I think that'll look quite nice. I'm just getting enough paint on my brush there to very quickly paint that, leaving the sort of holder for this gem in silver, as I would like it to be a little bit silver at with the, what do you call that, the clasp or something for holding the gem in the top. I'm also then going to paint, there's a tiny triangle that matches the sword, so I'm going to paint that in the same, just a small detail, but I think it'll add a little bit more yellow. And then there's a tiny ball on the bottom. I think with a tiny ball on the bottom I should have probably painted that silver as well to match, but I just wanted to experiment with how these paints will work, and I guess I'm letting you see what happens as well in all the different colours. So it's got a dark base. This one doesn't matter too much because that's the matte colour anyway, but with the other three colours we are going to be using the gemstone, so you'll be able to see how that looks on both silver and a charred brown. So just doing the same with the green sword. That gem I think it's just too small to do very much with, but this is the more exciting bit where we're doing the top of the staff. So we've got that in silver underneath, and then we're just applying the paint thickest at the bottom and dragging that up to the top of the gem. So I'm just doing that on each part around the clasp for the gem, the holder for the gem, and I think you can see that's applying a lot better. It's a better surface for doing it well. It looks a lot closer to an actual gem. I am then going to paint the bottom of the staff in the same colour, so we're going to get to see what this gemstone effect looks like on a darker surface. So we'll be able to see that at the end, and then just painting that little triangle in as well. But I just think that's too small to possibly see this work. So I'm going to do the same on the blue, just very quickly for you. See, it's exactly the same process. Just wanted you to see how the paint went on to the staff. Really, I think that's the best bit of this. That's what I wanted to do this for, and then I'm going to do the same on the red. You have to let me know if this is interesting, and especially at the end if you like how it looks. If I should just do a standalone video on showing this. I'm thinking of moving into doing a few tip videos with just a short explanation of how to do various things. So that's the red shield after the paint's dried. And I don't think it looks like a gem, but I really like how that's gone on. I think it's a really deep colour and a lovely shine to it. And there I'm just showing the sword in the same red. I don't think it's got much of a gem effect there either, but it does still look good. And there's the staff. Now the red on the brown I don't think took very well, as I sort of expected. The instructions didn't say to do that, but on the top I do think that looks quite shiny, gem-like, crystal-esque. What do you guys think, especially for my first time ever using this? If you guys got any tips for doing it, let me know in the comments below. So we're going to be on to the highlighting now, and we're going to be using Beastly Brown for all that charred brown, and I'm just using an Art Pro, which was supplied by Quick Draw Supply, so I'll put a link to that in the description below. And I'm just dry brushing this beastie brown across all of the browns, so that's the handle of the swords and the whole staff, with the exception of, obviously, of the gems that we've painted in. So I'm finding this dry brush, this is, I don't know if it's just new and I forgot how good my old one was, but I'm finding this really, really good dry brush for doing these models, and I've used it once before and thought it was really good then as well, so I might do a review of that at some point. Here we're just highlighting up the silver, so I'm using my detail brush by the Army Painter, and I'm just applying the sort of colouring back in the silver, except in those lines in the hilt, and there's a line down the middle of the sword as well. But other than that, I'm basically just painting it back to the colour. So if you're more careful applying the Survivor shader, which is easier said than done because these are teeny tiny items, you could get away with not highlighting it and just making sure you get that shader just in the line down the middle of the sword, and there's a smaller line in the hilt as well. I'm also just highlighting up the silver around the gem there. It's sort of setting a little bit of metal. With the staff, as I mentioned, I'm going to be painting that holder for the gem. So I'm just bringing that back up, making sure I've got none of that gemstone paint on it or any of the charred brown on it. Just going to highlight that back up, trying to leave some of that Survivor shader in the recess between the staff and the holder. With the shield, I was super accurate with the shader, so I don't need to do any highlighting. So we're on to varnishing the items, the models now, and we're going to start with a matte varnish. And I'm going to use a cheap brush here. I don't want to accidentally damage one of my more fancy brushes. Not that any of mine are particularly fancy, but we're going to be applying that matte to all of the silvers and the browns on the items. I've taken a brush that's about the right size, and I'm just painting the front of the shield and down the side of it. And then off camera, I'll also paint the back, and that's just to protect it. I mean, these are going to get played with. These items are going to get thrown around. They're just going to be chucked in the box. So any protection is going to be really helpful for keeping that paint on the items. So on the sword, as I mentioned, I'm going to do the handle, the hilt, the pommel, and the blade itself. I think you could get away with a gloss on the blade. Let me know what you think. Do you gloss metals? I think it would probably work over the matte varnish, but I don't think I'm going to go wrong making it a little bit dull. I really want those gems to pop, which I'm going to later use the gloss varnish on. So that's just showing you the sword. Again, the same principle. I'm just painting what sides I can get to, and then once that's dry, I'll paint the back as well, just to give it an extra layer of protection. And with the staff, that's going to be all of the brown. I'm just missing out the 3 gems that are basically on the staff. I'll also paint the holder for that big gem at the top in this matte varnish. So just taking my time, trying not to get it all over my hands. And then once those guys are all dry, I'm going to be taking the gloss varnish, that's again by Vallejo here, and I'm using the same brush, and I'm just applying that to the areas we painted as though they were sort of the gems. So that's the middle of the shield, the teeny tiny gem, just to give that a dot on the sword and hope that makes it pop out and shine a little bit better. And then on the staff, same with that tiny gem, and then the top one, and I'll also just paint that little ball at the bottom of the staff there. I'll do all the other colours off camera. I'm sure you can imagine what they look like. It's just more of the same. And then that's the painting finished. So let's have a look how it looks. So we take one of the little meeples, and we'll take the red one, and we'll give him the red shield. And I think that, I don't know about you guys, but I think that looks really, really good. I'm really happy with that. It doesn't look so much like a gem, but I love the colour and the shine, and the sword looks nice. I'm very, very happy with that one. The blue one, much of the same, just blue instead of red. Again, pretty happy with that. I think this is going to look really, really nice on the board. It's going to be the first game I've ever played that's fully painted before. I've not played this game yet, and this is going to be fully painted before I've even played it. I've done 12 of the 24 items. It probably took me about an hour to do all of those. So another hour, and I'm going to finish that. So you'll have to let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see the next set of items. That will be the treasure items. These were the legendary items. With the game, you get this item rack, so I'm just popping these all on here so you can have a quick look before we end the video. I've also got the potential of reviewing the game. As I said, I've not played it yet, but once I've played it a few times, I might be quite happy to do a review. I've never done one before. Would you like to hear me do a review? Let me know in the comments below. And that's all the items finished. As you can see, the yellow's not quite the same, but with the gloss varnish on it, it's come quite close. I'm pretty happy with that as well. So do let me know in the comments below, what did you think of them? Did you like the gemstone paints? Is it beneficial to see an inexperienced painter using them? And I guess, would you like to see a review of this game? Thank you very much for watching, hope you enjoyed it.